All right, welcome everybody to Student Leader Orientation for the Fenrir Intro to Programming class. Thank you, first of all, for indicating that you were interested in being a student leader. Orientation will help give you an idea of what those responsibilities are. If at any point in time during the class you feel like it's too much and you really just need to focus on class, that's totally fine. Just let us know. It's not going to have any kind of negative impact or effect on anything that you do within our program. Obviously, having the wisdom to know when to put yourself first is a very valuable key tool to have. So there's definitely no shade uh, for having to pull off of the student leader duties if you're needing or wanting to. But hopefully throughout the duration of the class, you'll be able to roll with your student leader responsibilities and reach out to Teresa or I if you have any questions or need any assistance. The student leader responsibilities have changed a little bit from previous classes. We've kind of taken a little bit off of student leaders' plates so that way they don't get too overwhelmed, and hopefully it'll be a little bit more of a fun, engaging kind of role instead of a tasky kind of role, for lack of better terms. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start our orientation. To give you kind of an idea of what the purpose of the program is to help build community within your class, and then help kind of keep everyone on track as far as if you have somebody within your class or within your organization that you feel accountable with or to, then it helps you stay closer to on track for meeting your goals. And then for people who are student leaders, it kind of helps develop some of those leadership skills. So that's the purpose of the program. And the expectations that we have for student leaders is keep up with the material yourself. So if you're falling behind in your lessons, then we'll touch base with you and just check and see, like, is student leadering getting to be too much? Let's go ahead and take that off your plate. You can just focus on class stuff. Maintain confidentiality. So we're hoping that you'll be fostering some good communications and relationships amidst classmates, and there might be some classmates that come to you to confide about issues that they're having, either personal or technical. And so if it's something that is personal in nature that doesn't need to be shared with other classmates and only needs to be shared with Teresa or I, if it's something that we can help with as far as like getting them resources for internet connection options or getting them resources for computers or things like that, then let us know at that point. We have had students in the past that have had housing instability, food instability, that kind of a situation. And so if there is a way that we can help, let us know so that we can reach out to them to be able to offer help how we can. Definitely check in with each other for support. So even though you're going to be kind of building rapport and community within the class, you can also be building your own little small network amidst your student leaders. If there's something that comes up in one of your student leader study sessions that you're unsure of, then you can always check in with other student leaders to see, like, how did you deal with this? Or, you know, where did you get some good resources or answers to help answer these questions? That kind of a thing. And throughout the whole process, we definitely want you exemplifying those Code the Dream values of inclusion, community, growth, and impact. We expect it'll be around 3 hours per week on these tasks. It might be a little bit less than that too, since we've changed responsibilities. I haven't changed those hours commitments. So it might be a little bit less than that for you. You are not ever expected to answer any technical questions that you don't know the answers to. You're not expected to fix student problems. So if somebody does say, I can't afford my internet bill, it's not for you to pay. It's, or if somebody says, you know, like, I don't know what's going to happen with this computer, it's completely dead on me, you don't need to buy them a new computer. So you're not there to fix problems. Turf them to the people who are here in positions that are intended to help students with any issues that come up. So do refer them, but don't fix the problems on your own. Anybody have any questions so far, just about like what your expectations are, or, you know, things that you should not be doing to kind of get a clear picture of do's and don'ts? Yeah, Elena, go ahead.
Um, could you please give more examples of what should we do and what shouldn't do? Because when it comes to homework assignments, so if I know this topic very well, if I submitted my assignment already, should I help someone or should I refer this person, help them limit their question? I mean, to make it more narrow and refer to the mentor sessions. What
I
should
think
I
it
do?
depends on the topic. So if it's a topic that you feel really, really solid and comfortable with, then I'm fine with you helping them directly. That's
Mhm,
totally fine.
mhm,
If it's something that you're like, well, I struggled with that a little bit too, then I would
mhm,
help them kind of phrase and frame their questions so that way they
mhm.
can then take it to a mentor session and get that assistance with it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Any other questions about expectations or anything? Or is there anything, Teresa, that you want to add at all at this point? Okay. All
No,
right. So we'll keep on rolling. So core values, inclusion, community growth, and impact. We talked about during student orientation. Just like to show this slide one more time, just to kind of help drive it on home. Being open, friendly, welcoming, inclusive. It helps foster that sense of community and build a community within this sort of online experience that people are having as they're learning. And hopefully through that, then people will be able to achieve some personal technical growth. And we hope that you'll be able to help with that as well too, for areas that you do know and are comfortable helping them with, feel free to, and or helping them sort of navigate the path of where do I go for help? How do I find help myself? Like, how do I help myself? So, directing them to resources that you've used for topics that can help drive the point home. It's especially great for like YouTube videos on some concepts that are hard to grasp unless you have sort of a visual dynamic kind of explanation of it, like the modulus thing. That's why I popped that one up in discussion earlier. That's just a hard one to grapple with unless you can kind of like visually see how the numbers move. So something along those lines to be able to help with community and growth. And then have a positive impact. I mean, it can be hard when you're frustrated with working with code to keep sort of an upbeat, positive, like we can do this, we're going to reach our end goals, but trying your best to stay in that. And if you do encounter students that are getting down on themselves, it's okay to fail. That's how you learn. And just encourage and support them to help have that sort of ripple effect of a positive impact, to have that kind of expand through the community. Questions about the values? They're pretty straightforward. All right, awesome. Okay, so the student leader responsibilities, we have it broken up into sort of like these three little tag phrases, I guess, or whatever, taglines for what your responsibilities are. Step up, study up, and talk up. So step up is be helpful, friendly, and kind to your classmates. So if there's somebody that's posting a question that you can answer, go ahead and answer it. Like, what's our lesson that we're on this week again? Oh yeah, it's lesson 1-1. So being sort of Johnny on the spot with those answers, or, being approachable and helpful and outgoing as much as you can be. I know not everybody's an extrovert. I definitely am not an extrovert, but kind of being helpful and outgoing with that information. Study up. So you'll host a 1-hour study hall session each week. And the study halls don't have to be any kind of like lecture format. They don't have to have any kind of structure. You can talk about previous lessons. You can talk about future lessons to be like, hey, let's look at what we're going to be doing next week or whatever. And it doesn't have to, and it's not supposed to be a teaching session at all. It's really just let's all get together and kind of group study, because it is just going to be students that are on the call. If there are things that you're comfortable answering, if there are other students on the call that feel comfortable answering questions of other students, that's great. That's a great way to learn. It also might look like having folks kind of share notes that they took from mentor sessions they attended during your study hall session. So that way, maybe if somebody missed or went to a different mentor and they got different notes because that mentor maybe didn't cover a topic that somebody else had a question of in a session of another student. So it's kind of sharing information across students in your study halls. And then talk up, encourage discussion and communication in your cohort. And that can be very social and friendly. It doesn't have to be always like technically geared. So it can just be like what's everybody's favorite flavor of ice cream? Or, what's everybody gonna be doing this weekend? Anybody going anywhere fun? That kind of a thing. So just kind of getting a ball rolling to be able to get people to kind of know each other and not feel so isolated and alone in a remote learning environment. Questions about these three? We're going to dive a little bit more deeper into them here in just a second. All right. So the step up, I think that one was pretty straightforward, just as far as answering questions of where to find things, or if they're not sure who to turn to for help. It probably will look a lot, especially in the early weeks, it'll look a lot like reminding people like, oh, if you're having trouble, don't forget there are all those one-on-one mentors. If you need help figuring out how to sign up with a one-on-one mentor, I can show you, that kind of a thing. Identifying any additional resources. So if there are tutorials or resources online that you've used, or even like helpful cheats as far as like, oh, you can always get free internet connection at the library. So go chill at the library for a little bit. And, you know, it gives you a way to be able to have that connectivity in a quiet space where you can focus. So anything along those lines are useful things to be able to share with the other classmates. And then encouraging and empowering students to be able to reach out with technical questions, or if they're feeling discouraged, or if they've had a life change to where they might not be able to stick with the class, then they should talk to me so that way I can let them know what class they can defer to, or what that path moving forward will look like for them if they can't stay in the current class. Questions about the step up part? Okay, I thought it'd be pretty easy and straightforward. So study up, this is usually where people have the most questions. So it's hosting a weekly 1-hour study session. You'll let us know what day and time each week you'd like to have your session, and gear it towards your schedule. So an hour that you were already planning to carve out of your week to have for study time. So it's going to be the same hour every week if you're able to. If your schedule doesn't allow for that and you need to kind of change it up from week to week, or alternate between like Tuesdays at 7 one week and then have it be Thursdays at 7 the next week or something, that's fine. Just let Teresa and I know. And we'll add that to that mentor sign up sheet, that Google spreadsheet, and it'll say student study session. It'll have your name, it'll have your time zone and the time that you're starting. So that way students will know, hey, this is a student study session that I can hop on and participate in. At the end, then you'll fill out a short form, and I need to go ahead and pull that up really quick, so that way you can see what it will look like. And the form is really just to be able to ping Teresa or I if there's something that came up in your student study session that needs follow-up from mentors or follow-up from us. And the other purpose of that is so that if students aren't attending mentor sessions, but they are making student study sessions, then we know that they haven't completely ghosted us. They aren't not showing up and not participating in class. It's just the only thing they're able to participate in class are your study sessions, which is fine. We just want to make sure that they're having some kind of activity, that they do still have some kind of momentum in the class that they're going along with. Okay, so let me show you that student study session form really quick. Let me just pull this over. Oh, hold on, I've got to get out of this really quick first. Oops, as I jump 18 paces ahead. Okay. Here we go. All right, let me get to the other tab. Sorry, all of my windows are being ridiculous and not letting me click and drag them to the monitors that I need to drag them to. Here we go. Okay. So the student study session form is really simple and straightforward. You just put the date that your study session was. So if you're going to be on Tuesday the 18th, you'll click Tuesday the 18th. Your name is your name. So I'm going to pick on you, Elena. And then class obviously is Fenrir. And then participants is where you just put in any of the students that were in your session with you. So I'm going to pick on San now. So let's say San and Leonardo, even though it doesn't really make sense that you'd necessarily be in each other's sessions, but there you go. Just add any students that attended. And then for the do we need to follow up with you or a participant with resources or information, that's where you'll mark yes if there is some kind of follow-up that you need from either Teresa, myself, or from one of the mentors. And otherwise you just click no. If you click yes, then it'll email the class email. So that way Teresa and I'll see it and know, oh, something came up, we need to address whatever it is. And then you'll put the further details in here. So if it was one particular student in your session that was like, I'm really just struggling with arrays, they're blowing my mind right now, then in the further details, just put so-and-so said they really needed help with arrays. And that way we can talk to our mentors and say, hey, can somebody reach out to that person and help them with this specific topic? If it was something that was confusing across the board, like maybe you're in your study session and everybody's like, that did not give me hardly any information in lesson materials on this particular topic. I'm just as confused as I was before I even read the lesson materials on this topic. And then you could always put that in there and be like, everybody seems really lost on Git version control, or everybody really seems lost on how objects are structured and the syntax of that or whatever. So just put those details in there, and that way we can share that information with all of the mentors and say, hey, in your mentor sessions this week, really hit these topics hard and make sure that you're addressing them. Even if people don't bring it up, go ahead and cover it so that way people will be informed. Any questions about the form? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that type of information is really helpful if you put that, what is confusing to most people, because there's a lot of tough topics, especially at the beginning. It's just a lot being thrown at people.
Yes. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. Questions about the study session form? All right. And the link for it will be at the top of your Fenrir student leaders. I need to add your bookmarks in at the top of that Slack channel, but all of those bookmarks I'll be adding tonight onto that Slack channel. So that way you can just go to the top, just like you do on the announcements channel, and hit whatever bookmarks that you need. Okie dokie. And then let me jump back to here. There we go. Okay. If there's a week that you're like, I really can't do it this week, that's fine. You know, it's okay if you miss, excuse me, hold on, I have a frog in my throat and I am going to cough horribly in just a second. I really hate grass pollen. I really hate it. Okay. I'm glad I muted because that was really loud. All right. If there's a week that you're like, I just can't do my mentor session this week, or a study session this week, that's fine. Let us know. We'll take you off the schedule. Or if you want to change days, like, hey, I'm only getting like the same 2 people showing up, I figured I'd change it to another day of the week and see if I get more people showing up or anything. That's fine. Just let us know. It's easy for us to change that schedule around. If you'd like to co-host sessions together, that's totally fine too. We've had that happen in a couple of classes. So if like Elena and Leonardo are like, hey, this is fun and we're both free at the same time, let's just co-host a session. And sometimes having somebody kind of banter off with and like chit chat with helps get other people talking too. So if you'd like to co-host together, that's totally fine. Just let us know. So just as a reiteration, you don't have to have any kind of specific plan. You can just all be working on the material together. You can have it even be like a quiet study and just be like, hey, add things to a Spotify playlist and we'll just listen to each other's Spotify music while we work quietly together and just interrupt if we have a question here or there as we're working. So it can look however you want it to look, is perfectly fine. Questions about the study hall at all?
Mary Alice, how should they communicate their session times?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put a post in the student leaders channel and then just add a thread onto it. So just reply in thread to that post to let us know what day and time, include your time zone for when you want to have your session. If I have folks scheduling when a mentor session already is, or if I have folks asking for the same time together, then I'll see if you want to co-host, or if it's over a mentor session, then I'll see if you can move your session to another time. Like move it forward or back an hour kind of a thing. There was one other thing that I thought of when you asked that, Teresa, and now I can't remember what it was, but it was something about sessions. It might wind up coming back to me as we go through more things though. And if I can't remember, then I'll wind up posting in the channel and just be like, this is what I forgot. Okay. So then the last part's talk up. So we used to have student leaders follow up with any students that were behind in submitting assignments, but that wound up being more work for student leaders and more work for the cohort leaders than was really helpful for anybody. So rather than calling people out who are behind on assignments and having you all follow up with them and then we follow up with you and all of that kind of back and forth, then we thought it would be a much better use of your all's time to just sort of get some chatter going in the channels. So it can feel really isolating when you are learning online, because it's just kind of you in the ether. And a lot of times people have cameras off or aren't engaged or are trying to juggle multiple tasks while listening into a mentor session or things like that. So we really just want you to kind of start some chatter. So discuss mindset curriculum topics. Those don't start until week 2, and that's when that's what it was. Your study sessions will start week 2. You don't have to start any of your study sessions this week. Just take this week to be able to get your feet on the ground. Study sessions will start week 2. I knew I'd think of it. Okay, discuss mindset curriculum, like, hey, problem solving strategies. Let's talk about problem solving strategies. Or I think there's one on like goal setting, I think is one of the mindset topics that's later on in the class. So you can be like, I've got this personal goal to, run a 5K in X amount of minutes or whatever. And this is how I'm working towards it, to kind of give an example of how you're setting goals for yourself that are achievable to be able to attain, or anything along those lines is perfectly fine to do. And it can also just be fun stuff like favorite flavor of ice cream, or I just tried this new restaurant and it's amazing. So if there are any other students in the XYZ area of the world, you should check it out. Anything like that is totally fine. Sharing your experiences, encouraging others to share theirs through icebreaker type discussions in the outlet channel is always good too. So this can happen in multiple channels. So in the discussion channel, you can post something that's like, hey, I read this really cool blog article about the, where JavaScript even came from, or, here's a really neat article about Grace Hopper or some other foundational, programming giant that came before us all or whatever. So you can always share some pretty cool stuff like that, that is more curriculum or technically related in the discussion channel. And then all the social stuff you can share either on Discord or in the outlet channel. Questions about TalkUp? Everybody feel pretty comfortable about that? Yeah, go ahead, Elena.
I have a question, just general. So what level of personal information can we share? So if someone asks me like something example, and it's easier just to send through email, maybe, should I send like ask for email, or should I share through like available resources and not ask personal details? If a person is okay sharing, so it's or it's prohibited.
No, that's perfectly fine. If you're comfortable doing that, and if they're comfortable doing that, as long as there's sort of like that mutual consent to either text each other or email each other, that is totally fine to do. Yeah. Just keep in mind, if this shouldn't happen, because I think like one time in the past 5 years have we had any kind of incident of, a student thinking another student was interested in them romantically, and it became horribly awkward offline kind of a situation. So if you're having any inappropriate situations happening to you, or anything along those lines that are in avenues that we don't have visuals on, like your private email or your texting, then just be aware and, document and share if need be, if it needs to go that route for any kind of mediation. But otherwise, yeah, if you're totally fine with, hey, let me just email you this link to this resource or whatever, instead of doing it through Slack, that's fine to do. Yeah. Other questions?
How is there a limit? I'm not at all familiar with Slack. Is there a limit to the size of the files we can share?
Oh, you said file size limits, right, Son?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think there is. I haven't encountered too many issues with having problems like even uploading videos or anything like that into Slack specifically. If there is an issue, then Slack will let you know, and it'll be like, that file's too big. So if that's the case, then you can either email it to me or email it to Fenrir, the class email, as like a zip file, if it's something that's like a video that you want to share with people, and I can upload it to the Code the Dream YouTube channel and then just give you back the link, so you can share the link wherever you would have shared the video or document or whatever. So if there's anything too big, then just kick it over to us and we can get it in a user-friendly format so that people can just link and get to it. Yeah. Good question. Anything else out there, questions wise? All right. So the additional resources that I'm going to add to your Fenrir student leaders is to the Slack channel is going to be the pre-class information page, that link to that week 0 assignment, because I know some students probably will just have glazed over it or not checked it or anything like that. But it does have some good resources for anybody that's trying to get accustomed to Slack user interface, get used to using Zoom. For the Replit and GitHub, there are videos on there that you can always refer them back to. As well as like those outlines of like asking questions effectively and things like that. So I'll have that link on there, so it's quick and easy to just grab the link and send it to a student if need be. I'll have a class FAQs, frequently asked questions document on there. That's one that I have compiled from the 18 million questions that are the exact same questions that I get from the same like 40 students every class, as far as like, what happens if I turn in my assignment late? What happens if I forget to and resubmit my assignment? What happens if I need to drop out of class? And like all of those other, common questions that I've gotten a bunch of times. So that will be available on there, and it's just like a PDF document, or I think it's a link to a Drive, Google Doc, maybe something like that. So that should be easy to be able to refer to if you need to. Mentor session sign up sheet, the link will be on there too. So if you ever need to double check your schedule and or let Teresa and I know, or double check that we've correctly adjusted your schedule for your study sessions or anything, then you can do that. And then the study session form link. So that form that I showed you earlier that you'll fill out at the end of every student study session, and you'll do that. All right, well, that's it. So if you have any questions, then feel free to ask them now if they're on your mind. And if you don't have any questions and think of them later, you can ask them anyway in Slack or through email, because we're always here for questions.
I've got a bunch.
Yeah.
How many students do we have from the GMT 0 to GMT +5 time zone? Just
which time zone is it on? You're in the Netherlands, right?
Yes, so that's GMT +1. So basically about Europe or like Russia or like.
You are the only one in your time zone right now. But let me do a quick sort of like regroup, resort to be able to see where students are within different time zones, to give you an idea of where the bulk of students exist. So let me just do time zone grouping, move that to the top. Okay. So and let me collapse all just so I can give you numbers. All right, the bulk of students are on the East Coast of the US. So we've got 29 students that are in Eastern Daylight Time. There are 8 students in Central, 2 students in Mountain, and 17 students on the West Coast. So the majority of the students from class are either East Coast or West Coast of the US for those time zones. The international time zones we have in your class are yours, of course. And then we also have a student that's in Egypt and a student that is in Kenya. Yeah, in Kenya. So they are GMT +3 and GMT +2 for Eastern African time and for Egypt time. So they'd be kind of a little bit closer in time zones with you than the others that are in the other direction of the planet.
Yeah, it's probably best. I mean, I have to do mine at 7 a.m. in the morning for me. It's a little bit early for the rest. Regarding students and referring them to people if they have questions or issues, is there something like an IT department? If somebody's had trouble with their computer and like it's shutting off every Windows is having a specific issue and I can't help with them, is there somebody that I can refer them to or stuff like that?
Sorry, your audio is kind of muddled, so I was having a hard time hearing.
Is it better?
It's just sort of like kind of echoey, and so it's hard for me to hear. Are you able to type it in the chat for me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. While Zon is typing, Vladimir and Carlos, you joined a little bit later. Were there any questions that you had about what we covered so far, or anything else that we can help you with?
No, not really.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I know, Vlad, I was able to get with you a little bit during office hours and kind of give you a quick rundown of what we were going to be doing tonight anyway.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe are you going to record this? Oh, it is
Yes,
recorded.
yeah, it is being recorded. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and post that a little bit later tonight after I get the kiddo off to bed. So probably in 4 or 5 hours, then I'll have things situated for you.
So while he's typing his questions, I just want to say thanks to everybody for volunteering to do this. I think this is so important for the students. It's really, I think a lot of times students feel like they're the only one that doesn't understand X, Y, or Z, when really it's probably a whole group of you that don't understand and can work together and figure it out. And that helps everybody, I think. So this is really good. Thank you.
And having that team exposure is helpful too, because it's
Exactly.
very rare that you're going to be working for yourself and, just be contracted. And even if you're contracted, you're going to have to work with the people who contracted you. So having that kind of teamwork experience is always good. Okay, thank you for the question, Son. So is there an IT department or something that I can refer people to that have issues with Windows or other like environment issues at all? So there isn't one specifically. If that is the hang up, like they're having some issue with like the M1 chip, if they're on a Mac or something like that, just let us know as much information about the issue that they're having. And that way we can kind of blast all of the mentors and say, this is the error they're running into and this is what they're running it on. Who would like to address that? Because some developers, some volunteers are more familiar with Mac versus PC versus Linux or whatever. So having that information will help us narrow down who can help them, but it'll most likely be mentors that'll wind up helping them with it. Thank you for asking the question. Oh, that does sound a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, I switched it from my webcam to my headset.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. A follow-up question to that: is there somebody that we can go to if someone has a complaint about us or something, or is dealing with harassment of some kind of order? Is there somebody official that we need to go to, or is it just one of the mentors?
It would be Teresa or I. So if there is anything where there was a disrespectful encounter, or I have an issue with this or anything along those lines, or I don't like the program or anything like that, send them to Teresa or I, so that way we can address it. If it's anything that's a conflict, like what I was mentioning earlier, if there was any kind of conflict of, harassment or anything like that, then definitely bring that to me. And I also have to then get my boss involved as well too, just so that way we can make sure that everybody's supported and that it doesn't happen again, because we don't want that in our learning environment. We don't want that in our CTD culture at all. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other resources that we can fall back on in case something happens that we like in the past, or is it just mostly you and Teresa?
Mostly Teresa and I, and of course mentors. So you can always reach out to mentors, especially if there's one that you kind of bond with throughout the class or anything. Mentors might have a little bit more limited time because they're volunteering on top of whatever their work or life responsibilities are, whereas this is my job, so you can always reach me. And Teresa's contracted, so you can reach her within her office hours and within her scope as well too. So yeah.
Clear.
And if we don't have the answer, we'll go find it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, if we don't have the answers, we'll be finding it for you. Exactly.
Perfect. The last question was, what kind of software we'll be using for the study apps? Zoom, I assume, but
yeah, Zoom. So you use the exact same link as the mentor sessions. I don't think you'll need host privileges for any reason, unless you absolutely had to record your study session for some reason, in which case just let me know and I'll share a host key with you, and you would enter in the host key to then get those sort of host admin privileges on the Zoom call to be able to record.
You mentioned playing music. Is that something that you can do through Zoom? Because I'm not at all familiar.
Yeah, actually, you should be able to, because we have it so that even participants can share screen when they're in the mentor sessions. To be able to do it, you would go to share screen, and then for the dialog box that pops up at the top, it says basic, advanced, or files. So you would click on advanced and then select computer audio, and that way it'll just share the sound. Yeah.
Does it not what it shows for me, but I'm on Linux, so that might be why.
Oh, okay.
But I'll try it for a second. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. We're seeing your screen and we're able to hear it as well. That's very peaceful. I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that were my questions.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording then.